Welcome everyone to Classic Homesteading Practices, and today we're going to be looking at basics of building, and boy do I have a story for you. The reason why I say this is because my learning curve when it came to building was a very steep one, and it was a very rocky climb in learning how to successfully make a product with plans and tools and properly using my tools and understanding the necessity of purchasing certain things for certain projects to make it properly done. And, well, there was at least one person in my household who was definitely snickering at me in the background whenever I became frustrated because something just wasn't right about the project. And for me, the project that really got me to learn how to properly use my tools and to truly look into the materials that I was getting into, whether using the proper materials for thickness of the wood and the proper type of timber to use, the proper screws and nails, and using a square instead of a measuring tape for certain things, and using clamps to hold things down. It was crazy, but it was wonderful because I have a skill that I can take with me and build a simple structure like a chicken coop now. Fairly simple. And I wouldn't trade all the cussing and crying and frustration for any of it because, again, I could even probably make chicken coops for other people and feel pretty darn proud of it at the end of the day. And I would like to give you that thought that you are able to do this as well. Especially if I can do it, you can do it. It's very simple. There isn't a lot of tools and things that you need. The knowledge is at your fingertips now, which I will be sharing with you. And I think the basic part and the first place we're going to start is with the tools. Now, there's a certain amount of tools that you will need for any project. Clamps, for instance. I would definitely say 4 clamps is on the medium side. You should always want at least 2. And I've had woodworkers that I've seen say, get 7. And the fun thing about clamps is that they range in all different sizes and kinds. The ones that I have myself are 24-inch clamps, and they are pump clamps where they have a handle that you would pump to the point where it squeezes down the material and keeps it nice and tight onto the table that I'm working on. And there's a little lever on the back of it that you can release the clamp from and easily slide it down and release all the pressure off of your project. I would also suggest getting a square, which is a little misleading. It's a triangle, usually metal, but it also can be a hard plastic. But I believe the reason why it's called a square is because you use it to square up your lines, whether they be just regular straight lines or diagonal ones. You use this a lot for cutting, and if you use a circular saw like I do, you level out your cut with your square. You also make beautiful angle cuts, which are very important in woodworking and building in general, with this square. Another one, of course, is going to be your tape measure. I think I have at least 3, maybe 4 floating around the house right now. 2 of them are miniatures, which are 8 feet long, 9 feet long, and then we have the 12-footer. And then I really want to get an 18-footer, but that won't be for a very long time. I have plans on building a cow shed and a barn later in life, but I don't think I can get my husband to let me do that at the time, or the moment at least. Other things that you need to be aware of is your screwdriver, whether it's manual or you decide to get something like a DeWalt, an electric screwdriver. Being aware of the different kinds of heads that you use, whether it's a square, like a Phillips, a flathead, a star, and many more that are available. And the reason why you use different types of heads is because the different types of screw heads that you're going to encounter. One of the biggest reasons why there are different screw heads, besides Phillips and flatheads, is because stars are usually more secure. That is what I've been told and taught. I find myself fumbling around with star-headed screws, though, even though they're supposed to not slip very easily. When I use my electric screwdriver, it still happens. But that can also just be because I am still learning a lot when it comes to using it, because I mainly focus with manual for most of my life. Now, also with screws, there are nails, though I am very biased. I believe that nails are not used for most projects. You usually should stick around to screws to just keep things secure and, well made. But there may be some older people who have different opinions, or other woodworkers who could teach me up on why nails are ever necessary for any job. Also with that, there are different types of screws when it comes to gauges and thread type, and they are used for different projects and different materials. There are screws for metalwork and woodwork, sheetrock and plastic, plexiglass, and others as well. There are also short screws, long screws, and truly the threading does help with grip and strengthen when it comes to being inside the material itself. Also with nails, there are different kinds of nails. Short nails, long nails, fat nails, skinny nails. The gauge is what tells you how fat it's going to be or skinny. And also, it can come in galvanized or stainless steel. I've even seen it where there is a coating on there. Usually they're construction nails and construction screws, where you want a heavier duty nail and screw. That also has a resistance to weather. And that is why they are coated in this yellow or blue. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it's called. I apologize for that. But my reasoning for telling you all of this is because when I went into building, I didn't know one thing about this, in all honesty. It was, there's a screw, and then there's a nail, and there are different shapes and sizes. That's it. I can use all of them for the same thing? Okay, cool. And that's not how it works at all. Now, I will say this. I have learned that an 8-gauge nail has been very good for most of all of my projects. But again, the reason being is because I usually work with 2x4s, and my projects aren't ginormous in scale. And I also only use wood for the most part. I have not gone into metal or plastic very often. I usually stick with 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Oh, and I've also dabbled in 3/4 inch plywood. And the largest wood that I've gotten into recently is 4x4 wood. And that's another thing that we need to talk about, is your wood types, also the size of your wood, your timber, and what the benefits are for each one of them. So, for most people in projects, we use 2x4s. They are a stud, which you usually put in your walls, and you have a regular 2x4 that you use. They also come in treated and untreated. You usually use treated for outdoors because they are made, like, treating wood is making sure that they stay good in the elements versus having an untreated wood. It's not meant for exposure. It will decompose faster. But if you have animals, you might want to use a non-treated wood around them because they will probably scratch, lick, bite, peck at the wood, and you don't want them to ingest the chemicals that are usually put in there. Though, with new treating types, there have been a switch in the chemicals that have been used, which are more animal safe. I do not know all the specs about them. Please research what I'm saying. Do not take my word as gospel. But I do know that they no longer use arsenic in the treating cycles. They usually use more of a copper compound for treated wood nowadays. Also, the thickness, as in a 2x4 or 2x6, 4x4 or 2x2, they are used for certain parts of your projects. 4x4s, excuse the coughing man in the background if you heard that. It's my wheezing old husband. Oh my goodness. We're trying to settle him down. Probably a hot toddy or a hot milk toddy we'll have to do for him tonight. But anyways, back to what we were talking about. Forgive me. I had a moment where I wasn't remembering what I had to say because of my awful, erratic, crazy man of a husband. Forgive me. Oh yes. We were talking about the different sizes and reasons for using wood. So 2x4s are usually great for walls, while 4x4s are great for structure, the foundation itself. The basic piles that I used to build my chicken coop for the project I had were 4x4s, and they are a very stout base. It is held up for, well, let's see now. This is a brand new chicken coop. We are going on the first month of winter, and I haven't seen any cracks in the paint. I haven't seen any creaking. There's a little bit of stress, but no signs of decay in the treated wood, which I shouldn't be, because that treated wood should last me about 20 years. And that is another reason why you use certain kinds of products, of materials over another. Using a treated wood for an exterior is going to make your product last longer. It's going to make your, for instance, my chicken coop last much longer. Instead of having a non-treated wood being the foundation and rotting away season after season slowly, having a rough life longevity of 7 to 10 years, now I have about 15 to 20. And this is with my chickens being around it, with rain, sleet, snow, hopefully never fires, because then it doesn't matter, it's going to burn up. But all the elements against it, it's going to last longer. And also, being a 4x4, it's stout, it is made for foundation. Now, 2x6s I have heard and learned and used as roofing material. It's a little bit sturdier than a 2x4. It is also really good for shingling things together. And then on top of that, you have your plywood. Now, I use the 3/4 inch plywood for my roofing and for the base or the flooring for my chicken coop. I was also going to be using it for my walls because, again, up in the north, it gets very cold here. But unfortunately, at the time, it was not in stock because we are going through tough times at Home Depot, apparently. So I had to go ahead and use a 1/4 inch thick. Now, the nice thing is, with some of your projects, you are able to finagle. I would not recommend it as a beginner, because if you make it with lackluster materials, your product will not last as long. It will not work as well. The insulation for my coop is not up to snuff to where I want it to be, but it still insulates well enough to my standards, especially with 12 chickens that I have in there right now. And being able to have something that takes care of the wind and the rain off the sides and off my chickens, I am happy enough with it. Also, another thing that you need to think about when it comes to exterior, I'm just going to add this in as a note, is painting. Make sure that you get proper paint. That was something that was very huge on the list of materials. And the reason being is because there is interior and exterior paint. And on top of that, there is a paint and primer dual that you can get. It is at Home Depot. It's a Bear product. And it's also animal safe. Personally, I just went with the regular paint, but a primer with a paint helps keep your paint lasting longer. So it doesn't peel or come off within a year or two. It'll stay on for hopefully 5 years, maybe even a little bit longer. That is what I was told. I have not personally experienced that yet. But on the other hand, of exteriors that I've seen from other buildings, from barns and sheds and cabins, there's paint that has lasted for over 20 years, which I was very surprised about. Apparently, that good old lead paint from 1970s works very well. And this is going through north storms, west storms, and just basic 60 gale winds, again, up here in our valley area. So basically what I'm saying through all of this is, by using the proper tools and the proper materials, you can make the best product, which is what you're going for. Now, again, depending on the projects that you're working on, you don't have to go all out. You don't need to use the best of the best. The $60 piece of plywood isn't and doesn't need to be used if you just need the specs of the $30 one. Something that is more expensive doesn't mean that it's better. And personally, if you can find somebody who has pieces of plywood or 2x4 laying around that are straight and true and not warped, buy them. Buy them for cheap. That's what I did with my greenhouse, and it worked for me. It stood up to 50-mile-an-hour winds. I did have some wiring to stick it down in the ground, but it wasn't dilapidated until I made it so. And that was because I had to tear it down. I'll tell you more on that in a little while. Not in this podcast, unfortunately. But, again, for your means, use the materials that will work for you. Yes, sometimes you're going to cry. You're going to cry because your wallet feels empty. But that's why you budget first. That's why you save up. Do not start a project when it's outside of your means, because it's not going to do anything but make you suffer. Alright, let's see. I've talked about tools, material, and now I think I should talk to you about plans. So when you're doing a project as a first timer, I will suggest always in purchasing some plans or downloading free plans of whatever you desire to create. And truly, they're not that expensive. I got my plans for my chicken coop for $10. And again, it is a sturdy girl, and she is gorgeous. She even comes with windows. And personally, it's something that you can keep all your life, whether it's a digital plan or it's a physical copy. As long as you take care of it, you have that plan. And because it's not a one-time plan. It's reusable. It's always there. And if it works out for you, then you have it forever. It's an old trusted friend that you're going to be looking at and reciting to, and will help you understand how to build better. And the reason why I'm saying so much of this is because in the beginning of my building experience, I decided to not use plans. And I got frustrated because the very first greenhouse that I built was so flimsy that it almost got knocked over by the wind. My husband called it a Frankenstein greenhouse, even though it was to my satisfaction for a while. At the very end of it, I was very disheartened and very upset because, again, it blew over, it was very flimsy, and I could have lost all of my plants. But now that I have plans, especially for a sturdy chicken coop that will hold my flock in and keep them warm, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I know that it is safe and sound. And again, because I used plans, I also had the ability to learn better my materials and why I use certain materials for certain parts of the project. Again, different pieces of materials are used for the foundation versus the walls, versus the roof versus windows. Each individual piece is important for their task involved in creating the end result. So, how do you find a good, trusted plan? Well, for me, I personally found Amy Wilkerson. She has a YouTube channel. I watched her make the coop. And when a girl is able to stand on the roof of her building, knowing that it's not going to cave in on her, that tells me that it might be sturdy enough to keep in 12 chickens. And also, learning about the materials, watching YouTube, reading articles, understanding every piece of the puzzle is going to help you out so much. And at the end of the day, again, this podcast is to get you started in learning, to let you know that you can do this. And the materials that you have to work with aren't that scary. All right. Last thing that I'm going to talk to you about is the most intimidating tool, but at the same time, it's not that intimidating after you learn about it. It is also the most dangerous tool because it can cut off body parts. But again, don't let it intimidate you, because there are safeguards put in place in order to make sure that, appendages are not lobbed off. And that is your cutting device. For me, I would always recommend the, easiest way to go about it, and that is taking one forgive me, there are one of two ways that I could express myself to you in the direction that you can go, and that is getting one tool and learning it well, and that's what you should do. And then the other way I could go is saying a specific tool, which is a circular saw, and learning it very well. Because, in all honesty, that is all you need for your cutting tools. But there are a lot of people who love their regular table saws, who love miter saws, and they will swear by them. They will say, this is the tool that you should use in order to cut your lumber. This is the tool that will save you so much time and hassle, and you'll always have a straight cut. But the reason why I personally suggest a circular saw is not only for the fact that it is the cheapest out of those three tools, but it is also the lightest, the easiest to handle, and the most versatile tool that I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with. A table saw and a miter saw are stationary. They are large. They are not easy to take with you. And if you're doing off-site location, having a circular saw is the best way to go with with a stand or a table to take with you and to do your woodwork there. Buying expensive does not mean it's better. And I know I said that earlier with materials, and I'm going to say that with tools as well. Buying older actually can be better. Also, finding things from friends, families, estate sales could do you the best. And I say this from experience in my skill saw. I have a 1990s Craftsman circular saw. It is big and old and beautiful. It even came with a blade that, unlike today, you would just throw away your blade. But this girl came with a heavy blade that you sharpen yourself, or you take to your tool master, and he will sharpen it for you. And you would use that throughout the saw's lifetime, which is, it boggles my mind that we do not make tools the same way that they used to be produced. A tool was supposed to last you a lifetime, and now we trade them out 3, 5, 10 years later, which 10 years is wonderful, especially for the price that is put on it. That is well worth the money spent. But a lifetime with one tool that can do so much. A circular saw can cut up to a 4x4, and as small as a 1/32 inch of plywood. For the fact that I can cut plywood, 2x4s, 2x6, 4x4s, 2x2s, 1x2s, all of them are taken care of by this single circular saw. Makes me a happy woman. And again, it is heavier, mine personally is heavier than most circular saws because of how it was made. And I will probably be carrying this circular saw with me for hopefully 30 more years. And at that time, if that is true, it will hopefully be 60 years old. And I can only cross my fingers and again, maintain and care for my tool as best as I possibly can, which is something that as a builder you're going to need to do. Taking care and maintaining your tools will add longevity to them. It will make them last the lifetime that they should be able to live. If you find, purchase, or scout out a good tool. So, I definitely recommend going in and purchasing a circular saw because, again, it's small, it's easy to take with you anywhere, on site or off site, and the versatility matches a circular saw. Oh, my bad. A table saw or a miter saw. So, just food for thought when it comes to a cutting tool. And also, this comes with your manual tools as well. Pick a brand that you know will work for you. Yes, there are a lot of really good ones, the reds and the greens and the yellow brands. Personally, I buy the blue brand and it's cheap and it works. But sometimes if I'm feeling, a little angsty or ecstatic, I go for the red brand, which is Craftsman. And for the price and for the basic builder, Craftsman is actually a really decent brand. It is made for basic builders or for beginning builders with the price points. And as you become more adjusted, if you decide that you wanted to get a more durable piece of hardware, you can go up and look at more tools and different brands and see if they have higher quality. But in all honesty, there are some tools that you really do not need high quality for. You can just go ahead and get a regular Tobashi or Husky, or Cobalt electric screwdriver that'll last you for a very long time. And you do not need to worry about it. Just don't run it into the ground, and again, make sure that it's clean and it's put away properly. Water doesn't get into it. And don't be afraid of it. Watch a lot of tutorials. And also learn what torque is and your speed ratio on your electric screwdrivers. That is another note that I want you to just take with you, because again, I know it seems like something that is very normal to think about, and it should be common sense to look into, but there are a lot of people who do not know to look at that and why torque is so important, along with the speed dials that are on your electric screwdrivers. And also, there is a time and place for manual tools and your electric tools. In all honesty, you can do anything with a manual tool that you can do with an electric. That is why cabins were built back in the 14, 15, 16, 17, 1800s up until now. There were cabins that were built in 3 days. They were called trapping cabins, and they were done by hand with hatchets. That's right, by hand with hatchets in 3 days. They weren't the best, but they were livable. And people lived in them through the winter with campfires, and they ate food in there, and they skinned, and they did a lot of things. And that, my friend, is what being a builder is about, is knowing your craft so well that you can make that cabin in 3 days. And yes, there was usually a group of 3 to 4 people, but think about that now compared to what a structure is today, and also how much time and ability that is put into a house or a clubhouse for your kids, a tree house, a chicken coop, farm. Oh my goodness, a barn. It looks like a simple structure, even though it is very large, but there is mastery that goes into making buildings. There is a finesse and there is skill, and it is a proud skill that you should be very, proud of in mastering. And it can take a lifetime to learn this one. With any skill, it can take a lifetime, but it is worth it. All right. That is this day's talk. I know I've talked your ear off for over a half hour now, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I know I got a little bit passionate on you at the very end there, but I hope and I think you might have liked it. All right. If you guys are listening from Spotify or Google Play or any other place, there is a link below that will take you to my Anchor podcast, and you can leave me a voice message. Tell me how I'm doing, please. Please tell me if you like this. Also, is there anything that you want to learn? And also, thank you for understanding and coming back to listen, even though I take a little while to upload sometimes. There are some talks where I really want to make sure that you have all the knowledge that you can have in these podcasts. And I know it's basic information, but there's a lot of it. And there's a lot to tell you and to share with you, and I hope you enjoy it. All right. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.